Nice one. So, yeah, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a brand new episode of the podcast. Usually it's musicians, but I do like to throw a comedian into the works every now and again. And today, ladies and gentlemen, I've been joined by comedian Fran Garrity. Hi, mate.
Afternoon. How are you?
I'm sound. Thanks for joining me, mate. The first time I saw you in real life was a long time ago when I used to play at stand-up comedy, over 10 years ago. And I
You were
first,
you were you were very good, and what I remember is
oh,
you
yeah.
were very smart looking. You were a very smart looking man.
I did wear scarves and shit, didn't I? I was going through a
Yeah,
bit of
you
a
did,
phase at
yeah.
the time. Yeah. Well, I didn't fall in love with comedy. I'm from a musical background.
All right, okay.
I gave it a good go because it's one of those things that I just wanted to try and not regret not trying, if you get me.
Yeah, you
Um,
were. I thought you were all right. You were good.
yeah. Well, okay. But I personally didn't work hard enough at the craft of it and have the
No,
passion
okay.
to do the traveling that you have to do just to scrabble around, getting your first 5 minutes and stuff like that, and play the game and all that kind of stuff. I kind of after doing comedy for a bit, I fell into hosting music gigs and then started putting my own music gigs on and ended up going down the music path. So it opened up loads of doors for me comedy. And the first time we saw you, you was with another guy that you used to travel with a lot. Because you're from the northeast way, aren't you?
Yeah, northeast of England. Yeah, so it might have been. Was it Carl Gillespie?
Yeah, a beard, bald head.
Nick Banks.
Nick Banks, that's him. Yeah, was he?
Yeah, he's giving it up now.
Has he? Bless him. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
because back, you've always, because you have to travel quite a lot. And I
Mhm.
met you in Leeds, so I'd travel from Sheffield to Leeds. You would have been traveling from the northeast down to Leeds just for an open spot to have a go at this thing called comedy.
Yeah.
You pick up friends along the way, don't you? And people who share petrol money with and all that kind of stuff. It's an interesting way to live your life.
Yeah, it is. I mean, you get to meet like other comedians, and some of them run gigs themselves, or they know
Yeah.
other people that do run gigs. So you kind of build up pretty much that way. To be honest, is to get other gigs with other places.
Yeah.
So it's all good. It's all good.
How many years ago was that? Over 10 years, surely. How many years have you been doing comedy now?
Yeah, be ten years now. Now
Oh,
I always say, well, technically it's 11, but we've had a pandemic, haven't
yeah.
we? So we didn't do anything for
We
a
don't count
year.
that one. We
So
don't count that one.
count that
Well,
one. No.
just talk me through the earlier life of Fran Garrity. When did you start to realise that, you had funny bones? You've always had a funny face, I can imagine.
Yeah, I've got one of them. I've got one of them
You have
faces.
got a funny
Haven't
face. You've got a funny face.
I?
But when did you start to realise that, you had funny bones too?
At school,
Mm.
I was a bit of a class clown at school,
Yeah.
and I did actually go to. Do you know when you sometimes when you're about 13 or 14 and you have to pick what's called your options at school, like
Yes.
what do you want to do for like the rest of your life and what subjects you want to do for like your exams and stuff. And I did say to the careers officer, I want to be a stand-up comedian, and he literally just haven't got a clue of what to do or
Yeah.
how to go about it and stuff like that. So I was always quite like, it was always in the back of my mind to try and do stand-up comedy, but I didn't start it till late on in my life. I never started till I was 40
Mm.
when I started doing stand-up comedy. So I've got a lot of background in radio as well. I do a lot of radio
Yeah.
shows and stuff like that. So I was more interested in, like, I know you're interested in like music and stuff, but I was interested in like sound production.
Mm.
So I'd done a few courses. Went and lived in Brighton for a couple of years and did a high national diploma in like music and film technology and stuff like that. So I was always interested in like music and sound and stuff like that. So I ended up working in a music shop for about 10 years as well. And then I've always had comedy pretty much on the back burner sort of thing, till I was about 40, and then I took the
Right.
plunge and then never
So
looked
why
back.
why making the decision when you were a young kid at school, talking to a careers advisor to do comedy? Why did it take so long before actually doing it?
Because I didn't know what to do. I didn't know
Oh,
where to
just a
go.
path. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, just I didn't know anyone around here that was actually doing comedy at the time. I know there was like comedy shows on and stuff like that. I used to go and watch comedy quite a lot. I used to see more stand-up comedy than I used to see live gigs,
Mm.
like live music gigs. But it was always getting that first foot in the door. Never knew how to do it. Never knew how to do it. And then someone dared me once. We were on a car journey to Derby. It wasn't to do with music or anything like that. And they just said to me, if there was one thing in your life you've always wanted to do but never done it, what would it be? And I said it'd be stand-up comedy. So he said, right, I'll give you 6 months to try and do your first gig. And I did my gig in the first 6 months. It was for like a new act competition in Darlington. And I did the heat, came third. All right.
There you go.
And then it just snowballed from there, really. Like I say, you just got to meet other comedians then, and then that's it, really.
Yeah, I think I'm trying to remember how I met somebody in a pub in Sheffield, Sarah Prophet, who told me about this place in Leeds called The Verve, where every Tuesday night, it's just a free space for comedians, particularly if you're starting off. It's just a safe space to have a go at it just in front of some other comedians and just have a go at it. So that's the place where I met yourself all those years ago.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was.
Those Tuesday nights. And are those places still around for people that are starting?
The Verve's still going.
It's still,
yeah. So, but I don't think I've ever played it since the last time I saw you.
Okay.
Never gone back there for no other reason.
Yeah.
But yeah. But there's quite a few around here now. There's the odd one that pops up every now and then, but then you're talking about sustainability, aren't you, really, after that? Because, it's an open mic night. You don't get paid unless, obviously, you're a headliner or you're being booked as a headliner or possibly to open. So the money's not there, really. And I know a lot of pubs and clubs just put a night on in the hope of getting, like, maybe a bucket share at the end of the night and stuff like that. But there's no guarantee of an audience as well with an open mic night. It's just pretty much just turn up and see what happens, isn't it?
So how did you start gaining traction as a comedian then? When did you first notice that, I've had this chance of just having 6 months. I've gone out there, I've done my first gig, come third. What kind of steps did you put in place to keep going? Because you've been doing it for 10 years. So obviously there's a drive in you and to keep doing it, where there wasn't with me. My drive was music. So I've been doing that for the last 15 years. But where did it stem from in you? Where did you...
I think it was probably more down to the writing side of things. So you start off with a really good, well, you think it's good, 5 minutes, and then you try and extend that to 10 minutes, then you do 15 minutes, then you do 20 minutes, then you do half an hour. So I was kind of building up like a nice little backlog of material. So I would want to go out and just to try it, just to see if it worked and try different things. And then once you've got like 20 minutes and you're booked to do like a 10-minute spot, you have to try and then figure out which bits do you include and which bits do you not include and stuff. So it was a case of like suck and see, really, just see what happens and see what the audience reactions and stuff like that is. But generally they kind of liked me, so that was all right.
The more I speak to comedians, the more it just every time. So it shouldn't be a secret. It's just down to writing and honing what you've written on stage, just taking the bits that work, getting rid of the bits that don't, developing bits, changing bits, trying it out, and just keep doing it and doing it and doing it until it works. There's no like secret to it, really, is there? It's just that's how you do it. But the hardest thing about it is the dedication you need to get up there every night and keep going.
Yeah, it is. And you've also got to have a lot of like relatable material as well. You could have something that you would probably think is the best joke in the world, but then only you find it funny. Nobody else finds it funny.
I had so 10 years ago, we were in the Halifax adverts, and I used to read this. I've put it on Facebook recently because it came up as a memory thing. I used to read out this magazine article that just calls out the 10 biggest cons, something like that. It's something ridiculous. So I used to, because I found it so funny, I kind of used that, thinking everybody else would, and the context for it all wasn't set up. It wasn't set up right. I was just basically reading it out because I found it funny. And there's so much legwork you need to do to set up something that you think is funny, and you have to have you got a certain like kind of formula that you've developed over the years, or is it
not really. There's obviously you do like the premise, you do the setup, the premise, and then the punchlines. That all like comes in threes and stuff like that. But then you've got to incorporate. I sometimes incorporate like callbacks into my set as well, where something that I've mentioned earlier on, then I mentioned later on, and then people go, "Oh yeah, you mentioned that earlier on." So, but
I always love it when you do that, when it feels like you've gone on a tangent, and it feels like you're. It makes it feel like you're doing it for the first time for the audience, doesn't it? He's gone off on a tangent. Oh, then he pulls it back, and then everybody loves that. The comedy crowds love that, don't they?
They do. I think with comedy, it's just the surprise element, isn't it? At the very end, that gets the big, well, hopefully gets the big laugh and stuff. So there's a lot of stuff that I've written, and it's been shit, but there's a lot of stuff that I've written that's been good. So. Yeah.
So what about just within the, like looking back at, through the years and, gradually becoming more established through it all, what was the best piece of advice that you received from a comedian? Because in the back rooms of comedy clubs, comedians are all at the back, and the more experienced comedians will and do give you feedback when you're just trying things out. And that could be brutally honest. It could be, just little tips now and again. Oh, I'd do it this way, suggestions, that kind of stuff. What's the best piece of advice that you've received from a comedian yourself?
It was probably when I was about 3 years, probably less than about 2 or 3 years in. I got to do a gig in South Shields, and it was like it was their birthday show, and they got a comedian on to headline, and it was called Seymour Mace from Newcastle. Very funny man. Well, he turned up for the gig, and he just looked like a normal bloke. He had a carrier bag, carrier bag, and he was just stood at the back. And I'd never met him before, so I didn't even know what he looked like. But to me, he just looked like a normal bloke, just stood at the back. And fair play to him, he stood and he watched every single comedian that was on that night. And after I'd gone in, I think I've done like a middle spot. I'd done like 10 or 15 minutes or whatever. He came over to me and he just said, "I think your writing's excellent. I think it's really good." And he just gave me them words of encouragement. I think that's the first time that I ever thought, there might be something in this, because he's a headliner. He's like an established headliner, and I was just like a little middle spot, maybe doing it for like 20 quid or something like that, or like petrol expenses or something. So even though he said like I was really good, I had some really good material, my writing was really strong, that pretty much stuck with me, and that's kind of like encouraged me to carry on, really.
And the big thing around the comedy industry at the minute is cancel culture and that kind of stuff. It always comes up. I'm always banging on about it on this podcast, and just saying how ridiculous the world has got sometimes, when you can't be expected as a comedian to not talk about what you want to talk about, and you can't be expected to understand if people are going through a bad time mentally, or if they've had a death in the family or something. You can't be expected to tailor your material around a crowd's feelings sometimes.
Yeah.
How do you feel about the whole cancel culture at the minute, and how some comedians are, or if it feels like when I watch a lot of American comedians, they're always fighting, or just any comedian at big established people on Netflix, it feels like they're all fighting back about it. There's always a bit within every comedian set at the minute which is fighting back against cancel culture, which I love to see. I'm just curious to know your thoughts on it.
There's obviously certain subjects that I wouldn't joke about, like serious subjects like murder or rape or something like that.
Yeah.
But other than that, I think everything else is pretty much fair game. I know a lot of people go on there to be offensive or to cause offense and stuff like that. But I'm not one of them. I'm not one of them comedians that does that. So cancel culture, I don't really think affects me that much. However, having said that, I did get a letter from a solicitor once about a joke that I did on stage. I still do it actually because I'm not bothered. A joke about my ex-wife when I got divorced.
Oh, okay.
She found a clip of me doing this routine on YouTube.
Right.
So she wrote to a solicitor and asked me to stop doing it, and I'm like, well, no, because I don't name you, I don't reference you. Some of the ideas that are within the joke don't actually relate to what actually happened. There's a little bit of stuff that's made up and stuff. But I just thought that was just proper weird that she took the time out to make an appointment to go and see a solicitor to write a letter to ask me to stop doing the joke.
That won't be cheap.
Sorry?
That won't be cheap at all, will it? Getting a solicitor to do something.
No, probably just like 30, 40 quid. But I still do it. Because it's a very good joke. So if you're listening, hi.
Yeah, so it's there, isn't it? It shows its face every now and again. Do you think comedy crowds have changed since the Will Smith thing recently?
No, not really. Not really at all. I mean, I found out tonight because I've got a gig tonight.
Yeah,
I haven't had a gig for a couple of weeks, but no, I think a lot of people were quite worried about the fact because I mean, there's always that one thing where if you do a gig and the guy who's emceeing or the guy who's comparing always says, "Don't heckle the acts. If you want to heckle the acts, heckle me," and stuff like that.
Yeah. And
I'm not really being prone to that. I have had the odd heckle and stuff, but I'm quite a dry comedian, so I'll just throw like a one-liner back at them. I won't be into like, I'll try and nip it in the bud straight away if anyone tries to heckle stuff. I'm not really one for much for a crowd argument sort of thing, but I know a lot of comedians were a bit worried, especially with the Will Smith thing. If they say something offensive on stage, what's to stop people from getting up and batting them in the face? Do you know what I mean?
Does it worry you at all? Does it concern you in any way at all? It shouldn't.
No, not at all. Not at all.
Good on you.
Not at all, no.
Is there? How do you feel your style has developed over the years?
When I first started out as a comedian, I used to be a one-liner. Comedian, and I think that's down to a few things. One of them is obviously nerves. You're trying to get your 5 minutes done as quick as possible. You're trying to get as many laughs as you possibly can in the first 5 minutes, and you want to try and impress people as well. So I used to do a lot of one-liners, but now I do a lot of storytelling. Like some of the stuff that I talk about maybe lasts about 2 or 3 minutes on stage.
Yeah, and
you've got to try and hone that to get the factor where people are still listening to what you're saying. So by the time you come to the end of it, or by the time you come to the middle of it, they still know what you're going on about. So I've kind of changed quite a lot, to be honest. I mean, at the beginning, I won't lie, I just wanted laughter after laughter after laughter. But as you grow into a comedian, and like I said before, you try and do material that's relatable to people. I think they do want a bit more of a story behind it, sort of thing.
Do you drive yourself mad while you're out and about? Just like, oh, this could be a bit, this could be a bit, this could be a bit, this bit. Do you know, just life's around you, and do you have? How do you gather together the thoughts or the ideas for jokes? Because I used to put it on my phone, but I used to drive myself mad. Like everything can be a bit, can't it, around you, potentially?
Yeah. So I've got a notepad. Got a notepad on my phone.
Yeah.
So I'll just go in there and I'll just write a few bits down and stuff. Sometimes I used to have a notepad next to me, you know, like when I went to sleep. If I woke up in the middle of the night, I'd write stuff down. But then when I wake up in the morning, I was like, "What is that?"
Like a serial killer's notepad or something. It just don't make any sense.
What is that? What are you on about there? What are you on about? 12 eggs and a ghost. What are you on about?
So where do your ideas come from then? Talk us through how, well, don't give anything away, you know, but I mean.
I don't know, I just talk about my life, talk about my family, talk about work and stuff like that, talk about jobs that I've had. I think the most easiest thing I've probably learned from doing all this, write about what you know.
Yeah.
Don't write about what you don't know, because if you write about what you know, you'll remember it. You'll completely remember it. I used to try and do a bit where I'd probably make up a scenario, but then when I was on stage, I was thinking, I can't even remember what happened next. but if you write about stuff that you know, or about an experience that's happened to yourself, it's exclusive to you, and then you can share it, and it'll become much more like an honest piece of work, really, because you're talking about yourself, you're talking about your life. So
yeah, because I can't imagine anything more harder than trying to remember what to say for an hour. And is your new show that's coming out, is that an hour now? Is it an hour?
Yeah, so I've done. So this is my third hour show that I've done, and I kind of like this one. I think it's really good. First one I did one because I used to be a benefit for all investigator
Okay.
for the local council. So my first show was pretty much all about that, how I got into it and stuff like that. So that was called Secret Agent Fran. And my next show was called Faith, Hope and Garrity, because that's my surname. And this one's called 50-50. I wrote it during lockdown. Story about like all the risks that I've taken, or the chances that I've taken throughout the course of my life. Some of it's worked out, some of it's not worked out. And pretty much like a gambling situation where it's like 50-50. But I also turned 50 as well, so I thought I'd tie that in as well. So
but the actual...
it's all about the belief in probability as well and stuff as well. So
the actual thought of the actual process of being able to remember something for an hour, do you have like different 5-10 minute bits, 20-minute bits that you stick together in your head? How's the mechanics of a show fit in your head?
Yeah, so I'm talking about how I do it. I don't know how anyone else does it, but this is how I do it. So I do them in like blocks of 4 or 5. So I'd start off with like a theme, like maybe this show 50-50 has probably got like 4 different themes within it.
Okay.
So within those 4 themes, I'll have maybe like 5 or 6 bits that I want to try and put together, and I try and tie them all in together so they all relate together at some point. And then I just learn it as blocks. So I have a block of 4 to start with. Then I know that moves on to that. Then I know that moves on to that, and that moves on to that. But hopefully the audience won't see that at all. So you'll have a bit. For example, I'll do a bit about lockdown and stuff like that, and then that follows on from that bit to the government when everyone got furloughed, and then that follows on to another bit about me getting me jabs and stuff like that. So that's the way I remember it: lockdown, government, jabs. So I just write them down as like 3 little keywords. So I have like one little word for each sort of segment that I'm going to be doing, and that I've learned all that segment off by heart. Yeah. So I can just look at a bit, and it'll just say something like I don't know, lockdown, and I'll remember all the stuff that I've written about lockdown. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it's fascinating how you get it all together. And do you have like a big chart where you map everything out? I've seen comedians do that before. Like, so they'll have each section mapped out and ideas and all that kind of stuff. Just
loads of like arrows.
Yeah, loads of arrows and drawings and for cockpits and all that kind of stuff, because comedians are just amused.
Nah, can't be chewed with that, Carl. I'll just have post-it notes. Just have post-it notes on the wall. That's all I have. Just a post-it note. Post-it note with 1 word on, or maybe 2. One of them says B, and the other one says funny. To be funny. That's what it says.
Well, the last time we chatted, you were very kind to do a bit of a Edinburgh diary for us when Edinburgh Fringe, what, that 2 years ago?
Yeah, it was 2019. So I got selected to do Best in Class, which was brilliant, actually.
Yeah, the readers of RGM really enjoyed the comedy content we were putting out in Edinburgh.
Oh, thank you.
It's really good. I know you're not there this year. Is that just because I presume it's just, well, I know for a fact Edinburgh, even living there and getting there and everything is just so expensive. How come you're not there this year? Is it cost?
Costs, yeah. cost thing. I mean, when I did it in 2019, I didn't do the full run. I did about 10 days of it.
Yeah.
When I was there back in 2019. And when I was there, it was like a showcase thing. So it was like I think there was about half a dozen of us got selected to do this working class show, and it was called Best in Class. So we all got to do like anywhere between like a week or 10 days. Some of them overlapped and stuff like that. But I really wanted to try and take one of my own shows up there. So I think I'll probably do it with 50/50.
Yeah.
But I'll probably do it next year. So in between now and the next 9-12 months or whatever, I'll have the show completely honed.
Yeah, that's right. Because there were a gang of you, weren't there? There were a gang of you going up there to make it affordable, I presume. Taking your own show up there, you know, having the cost of hiring your own place and marketing and all the work that's on in any kind of live show. I presume it's just a lot more to do your own show.
Yeah, and I think as well. I think you've got to get your show right before you go up there. Yeah. Otherwise, what's the point? You spend all this money on accommodation and food and flyering and all marketing and stuff like this. But I think if you haven't got your show pretty much nailed down, then you might be onto a losing battle straight off, really.
Yeah.
But no, it is a very good experience.
It's great to see it back in it. Just having the Fringe Festival back and
like any festival really. Even actually doing a gig that's not on Zoom.
Yes,
it's very good to do.
Well, I had Tom Binns on the podcast, and he's got his own van, and he started doing gigs on top of his van.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, he did.
Just to keep doing it. Yeah. Brilliant. So radio as well. You've got this radio show on Radio Zetland. Were you doing that through lockdown as well? I can remember still seeing your face on Facebook with your funny videos and your introduction videos that I enjoy from your car. I do enjoy them.
All right, cheers, man. So again, lockdown was a bit weird because what we had to do, the radio station technically shut down. Nobody was allowed in it, so we had to get all our gear and microphones and stuff like that and record the show at home. So I'd be doing voice links for songs that I wasn't even technically playing because I'd just do the voice links and then drop them into a folder and then they get added to the show and stuff. Yeah. And then it was kind of weird to do with it first because I don't know if you, as a presenter, you like to have an audience, but if you just voice tracking some songs, you don't really know who's listening. It's very difficult to do. It sounds like you've taught yourself how to do a podcast, and you're a comedian. You must have a podcast, no? No, I haven't got a podcast. Too busy.
Fair enough. Well, do one, mate. I'd listen to it. I like hearing your voice, mate. And I live in Manchester now, so I can't quite get Radio Zetland unless it's online. Is it online as well?
Well, you can get it on your smart speaker.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I've got one of them. Yeah.
You just say play Zetland FM, it'll come on. Right. But we have just applied for a DAB license.
Right. Okay.
So we'll find out by the end of the year whether or not we got it. Hopefully it'll be successful, but then more people can listen to it. So
first gig, and is it your first gig for a while tonight, or is it your first outing of 50/50? What's the gig?
No, tonight we're doing a fundraiser for Ukraine.
Right.
So there's a few Teesside comedians doing it. Catherine Young, Matty Oxley, Carl Gillespie, Dean Moore, and I'm headlining, and it's in Saltburn. My car's been off the road for a couple of weeks. My car broke down on the way home from a gig once in Mask, which wasn't very nice. I was literally 10 minutes away from home. And 3-hour call out for the RAC, brilliant. So I just left it there. I just left my car in the middle of a roundabout. The injectors, one of the injectors has gone on the engine, so not very good, very costly. So I've only just got my car back. So I have had gigs, but I've not been able to do them. Okay. I've had no transport and stuff. So I've got a gig tonight, and then I'm very busy. I'm very busy next month. I've got quite a few next month.
Okay, well, tell us about what you've got coming up next month, and we'll put a ticket link on this podcast so people can Coming in
Right.
the show, mate. What we got? Oh, you're very prepared. Is it all on there?
That's all in here, man. I'm just trying not to read my password out as I go through.
Okay.
So I've got a couple of solo shows coming up for 50/50. One of them's in Middlesbrough on the 13th of May, which is 2 weeks today.
Yeah.
And then I'm doing it again in Whitley Bay on the 26th of May. There is sketch for Sammy. I don't know whether you've heard of this. It's like a big Northeast thing. Where a lot of comedians and a lot of musicians go to Newcastle City Hall and perform, like, I think it's called Sunday for Sammy, it's normally called. So they're doing this this one called Sketch for Sammy, where loads of writers have got together to write like little different sketches and stuff. That's at the Customs House in South Shields. But I'll be doing like a little comedy spot in between them, doing the sketches and stuff like that. I'm also in Rotherham on the 21st of May, and I'm in Preston towards the end of the May as well. And then in between that, I've obviously got my my radio shows on Zetland FM.
Yeah, man. All on top of a full-time job as well, is it?
Well, I say full-time. Flexi time.
Oh, okay, fair enough. But still, it's a lot to do. I know I work full-time and I do all the RGM stuff on top of the work. It's a commitment, isn't it? And you wouldn't do it if you didn't love it, I suppose.
Exactly. That's what people say to me. Not only about like comedy, but to do with radio as well. They're like, why do you put so much effort into it? And it's just because I love it. I mean, if I didn't love it, I wouldn't be chill, wouldn't be bothered with it. Do you know what I mean? But I absolutely love doing live radio, and I love doing live stand-up. There's no better feeling, to be honest.
Which one?
You never know.
Would you pick?
You never know what's going to happen.
If you could only pick one, which one would you go for?
Radio.
Would you?
Oh. Yeah. I think a lot of people are quite surprised about that.
Yeah.
Only because radio was my first. It was my first love. Radio. I did it for quite some time when I was a bit younger. Then I took a break for a bit. Then comedy started, but then someone got me on the radio as a result of the back of the comedy sort of thing. So it kind of works both ways and stuff. But I absolutely love doing the radio. Not to say that I don't love doing stand-up. Stand-up's class. Love doing stand-up as well. But if you had to take a choice between one or the other, probably be radio. And I'll tell you why as well, because I've got a studio next door, and I'll be able to sit in my house, do my shows, finish my shows, have a cup of tea, watch a bit of telly, go to bed.
Yeah.
Not travel all the way to Scotland for 10 minutes in a bear pit.
Yeah. No, I get it, mate, and we applaud the hard work that you comedians do. I've said it many a times when we have a comedian on. The hard work that goes on behind the scenes is never really rewarded. It's self-satisfaction into it, and you've got to have a drive to get anywhere in comedy or even music. Being in a band, they're always on the road and for years without any kind of money that comes into while they're honing the craft. It's a similar kind of thing that way. That's why I like it.
You never know what's around the corner. You never know what's going to happen.
It opens up opportunity. Putting yourself out your comfort zone, like I did with comedy, ended up me running RGM in a weird way. It just opened up opportunities and things happened. So I just love that comedy, even though if your career's not necessarily progressing or it doesn't feel like it is, it will be. It's just the stars haven't aligned yet.
No, and you're doing all right, Carl, aren't you?
I'm fucking loving life, mate. I love it. I love how I've ended up, and just just speaking to people online and doing what we do, going to gigs all the time. I watch a lot of comedy. I just love comedy and music, so I just surround myself with it, and I love it.
Yeah, same.
So one thing I like to finish any kind of interview off is give us a few names of other comedians out there that you're enjoying at the minute, that people watching this video will 100% click on your links that are going to be in the description of this podcast first, obviously. But like, who else is up and coming in the comedy world at the minute that you think would appreciate a bit of a shout out and a bit of love online?
There's loads. There's absolutely loads. We'll be here for 2 hours.
I've got 2 minutes left on Zoom because I don't pay for it.
Right. I'm going to mention people, right? But then if I don't mention people...
Oh, okay.
And they'll be like...
They should understand.
well, the better. So I'm putting that little thing in now. So if I've missed your name off, tough. But from the northeast, you've got myself, obviously. Catherine Young, she's very good, up and coming. Matty Oxley, who runs some really nice gigs as well. Phil Smith, who you might know online as Ted Hankey, very good as well. So I'd recommend those from the northeast. And then further afield, you've obviously got people like, you know, like you've had him on, Scott Bennett, Adam Rowe, Freddie Quinn, Bob Mulholland, those type of people. Always make me laugh. Always make me laugh.
Love it, mate. Love it, mate. I really appreciate your time. Is there anything that you just want to say to the people that are watching this video? Any kind of message direct from yourself for the fans of Fran that might just be joining us?
That's what I was going to say as well. One of the good things about if I've got time, I will say it. One of the things, like when you create your own show, and people buy tickets just to come and see your show, that is the best feeling in the world.
Yeah,
it honestly is, because you feel the pressure's taken off you ever so slightly.
Yeah,
because they've come to see you. It's like instead of a normal comedy night or even a music night where they just buy tickets just to go and see this bands or whatever. I think it's really special when they actually purchase tickets for yourself. So
get out there, guys. Catch Fran on his tour. Watch his special, mate. Really appreciate your time.
If anyone wants to book my show,
yes,
get in touch and I'll put it on somewhere.
Yeah, man. Brilliant. Thanks, mate.
All right, thanks a lot, girl. Look after yourself. Cheers, man.